Hey looters, Lament for Ghouls here. I wanted to make this tip video for Torchlight 2, some tips that I think have been useful to me anyway. And I know this game is an old gem nowadays, but recently, Runic Games made some sort of partnership with Electronic Arts, so now you can purchase this beautiful underrated game on EA Origins. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that's just an excuse to make a video on an old game. But hey, I really like Torchlight 2, and even though I bought into the game a tiny bit late, I won't let it stop me. So my focus here is to present some tips that may help newcomers and may even show some current players something they may have not known. So any player with a more than average understanding of this game, bear with me. The first thing I feel I should mention is your move only key. I don't mean your left click. Left click moves of course, but it's your default attack. Sometimes this can be a pain when lots of mobs are crowding you. The moment you go to run away, your character will tend to target enemies instead. That's where your move only key comes in handy, which is the W key by default. In crowdedly dangerous situation where a quick escape is a must, you might want to rely on your W key for sure. Which leads me to the next thing I would like to mention. I don't really like using 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. on my keyboard for skills, potions, and all those sorts of things. So unless you're usually content with these settings, you should definitely edit the key commands to your liking. Another reason I bring it up is because I also changed my move only key for my own personal comfort. It's simply moved to another key in my case, but for some, maybe you would feel a little safer if you're in hardcore to set it as a mouse button. Or maybe not if you're in hardcore, either way. Movement skills. Every class has at least one movement skill, some classes more than others. Berserk has a few options where Ember Mage has one. So for any character build you create, I recommend always putting at least 1 point towards unlocking one of these skills. They can easily help create some distance between you and a pack of angry mobs or unexpected traps. Movement skills have literally saved one of my hardcore characters from some close calls. Skill respecs. So unless you're rushing through the game, I'm pretty sure you've seen this guy already. But I want to add, since you can only respec the last 3 points you've spent, and considering that certain skills are unlocked later on, for example, maybe the character build you're looking forward to making relies on a skill that's not learned until 14 or 28. You're not going to want to wait that long, and I can't imagine progressing without investing at least 1 point in a skill to level up with. So the tip here is to invest 1 point into a decent beginning game skill, and every time you gain a skill point, don't spend it right away. Instead, go back to town to the respec guide. Take your point out of the skill you don't want later on. That way you can spend the skill points you've earned. Make sure to leave 1 point to put back into your unwanted skill that's basically just a placeholder, at least until you get to 14 or 28, whichever your main skill is at. Pets. For those who are completely new to the game, pets can be sent to town to buy and sell items if you yourself are not quite ready to go back. But the beauty of having a pet lies in having a fighting companion, especially in hardcore elite. My pet has been very useful. You can choose a tactic for your pet underneath their status bar. You'll see one for offensive, defensive, and passive. I tend to always put my pet on passive, and by doing so, you'll find that your pet is a pretty good tank. Even more so when you catch some fish to transform your pet into something with a bit more attack and HP, in which I'll be explaining when I talk about fishing next. Fishing. For the most part, this seems self-explanatory when you come upon this mechanic, but I'm bringing it up due to how essential fish are in my opinion, mainly for hardcore. In my opinion, however, there are fish I would use more than others, like the warsnout, largemouth bass, or bonefish. Then there is 2 fish you can feed your pets that do not change them, but they add some pretty good effects. The Frenzy and Prismatic. These fish I will usually save for big fights that I know are coming up, or boss fights in general, because what I learned is, you can actually use, let's say, a bonefish, and then proceed to use a Frenzy or Prismatic fish to further boost the pet's power. They're like the Senzubina fish. A last thing to note for fish, they actually heal your pet to full on each use, so you could really use that to your advantage in fights to keep them tanking. On hardcore I find this strategy a bit useful, but you can go through some fish due to the damage your pet takes, so again, I usually hold out for champion encounters or boss fights. The Blacksmith and Armor sets. I'm bringing up the blacksmith because of the set pieces of gear you can find him selling sometimes. This game is very kind in my opinion when it comes to how often I find numerous set pieces to buy at once. Then I continue my journey long enough to loot up and come back to see more. You won't always see them, but maybe I'm just lucky. I found the Cloven Hoof set to be great for practically any build all the way to level 17, when you can then wear the Regent set. But a lot of times I will mix and match at level 17 and wear enough gear for both Cloven Hoof and Regent to get the bonuses I want from each set. One thing to keep in mind is that sometimes sticking to one set for a 7-piece bonus isn't always the answer. It varies on the character build. But Act 2 is when I really start focusing on what armor set complements my build. Enchanting. What can I say? Enchanting is expensive. You can enchant in town, but when you see a wandering enchanter outside of town, I recommend not going up to them. If you do, you won't be able to use their superior enchanting skills later on in the game. Considering enchanting is expensive and you'll want your in-game gear to be the best that it can be, remembering where your wandering enchanters are and coming back to them when you're rich with a nice in-game armor set is a pretty good plan. Transmuting. I won't say much here. The recipe to add sockets to an item and trading in your socketable gems in hopes to get gems that complement your build are the main recipes I use, as well as trading in 2 set pieces to get one back. I'll post a link to the transmuting recipe list. Socketable gems. I cannot come across enough gems in this game, and this game gives you quite a lot of them. Constantly needing them to add sockets to items, or as I mentioned, trading them in to redeem a gem of good quality for the build I'm currently running, always keeps me needing more. Of course you'll want to equip gems that are right for your build, but it never hurts to add anything HP related and to use some mana regeneration gems to sustain your mana. Which lastly leads to elemental resistances. I would only equip elemental gems to your gear if you are absolutely lacking in a defense for a particular element. For the most part, keeping my belt, rings, and necklace equipment in check and making sure they're always from a set around my level has for the most part protected me from the elements. So give those sockets what they really want, more HP and mana regen. No, I'm just kidding, just go with what you feel is best for your build. That's all I have for now. If I've managed to help someone at all in any way, then a job well done. I plan on making build guides in the future. The first build I would like to share is the easiest way to earn your Unstoppable achievement, by beating the game on Hardcore Elite. So it may not be the most interesting build out there, but maybe it will encourage people to get on the game and try for that Hardcore Elite win. Until next time, happy looting and feel free to subscribe.